Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Ponytails Podcast. I am your host, Andres Gamboa. We interview people who sold books for Southwestern Advantage door to door for 80 hours a week on straight commission during the summer years in college. So exciting to be here today with you guys. We have Jake Swenson in the house. A little bit more about Jake in a second. Just a couple of announcements. If you're new to the podcast and you're trying to figure out what the heck this is about, our mission is to be the top alumni network for Southwestern people in the world, especially because there are so many pockets of us that are hanging out, still keeping in touch, still doing life together, and it's just trying to connect with all those people and hopefully become a force to be reckoned with. Change the world someday, maybe donate to charities. Who knows? If you guys like what we're doing, if you guys appreciate what we're up to, make sure you guys follow, hit that subscribe button, share this episode, tell people about it. Just let other alumni who might not know about us know that we're here. And if you're someone who didn't sell books and you're like, what the heck is this guy talking about, like books, just Google it and then come back here because it's gonna be it's a wild ride. A lot of things happen when you go door to door for 80 hours a week for multiple summers. And speaking of someone who went multiple summers, Jake Swenson, he is one of the more legendary JYD bookmen of the company's history. I remember the first time I saw or met Jake. It was just a one time. We'll talk about it here a little bit later when we have him on the screen because I want to tell him to his face the impact that he had just by giving one speech. He is currently living in Mesa, Arizona. He sold 9 total summers. That's 9 summers. That's crazy. With the JYD organization from 2005 to 2013. He went to school at St. John's University, originally from Staples, Minnesota. He currently is the founder, president, and head of sales of Genesis Power Solutions. His favorite Augmendino scroll is number 2. I will greet this day with love in my heart, which, damn, so good. A couple of really awesome highlights that I asked Jake that I wanted to share with you guys about who he is and what he did during his time with Southwestern is he was the number 1 or the number 11 all-time units sold company-wide. So out of 100,000 living people, he's in the top 15, which is pretty amazing. We've probably had an estimated of over 200,000 people who've done this over the last 168 years. So pretty not bad to be in the top 15 for that. He was the number 1 all-time JYD for units sold. He was the number 1 rep worldwide across the board in 2010, and he was the number 2 in 2007 and 2012, which is my first summer and the first time I remember seeing him and talking to him. So super excited to have him here. He went on to North Star Alarm, and he was the number 1 rep in 2017. He had the company record for 81 alarms sold in one single month. And then in 2020, the year of the pandy, he founded Genesis, and with his brother Pete, who also sold for 4 summers, and a third partner, Adam, who he met at North Star. Just so you guys know, and why you should be taking notes, or why you should definitely turn the volume up for this one, Genesis has sold over $100 million of solar since its inception, just a little bit over 3 years ago. So it's pretty impressive. We're probably going to learn some stuff. There's probably going to be wisdom and gold nuggets of really cool advanced sales and recruiting in here. So make sure you guys take some notes. If you guys want to find Jake, you can go to at Jake R. Swenson on Instagram and find him there. That's actually how we found him. But you can also go to the.power.brothers, or you can go to at Team Genesis, any of those 3 Instagram handles. There's also going to be a link for those down below in the description, so you guys can go check them out. Go say hi to Jake if you want to. But when I come back, after this quick word from our sponsors and our little jingle, we'll be on with Jake. So we'll see you in a bit.
Thanks, Andres. You guys, part of the reason why I wanted to promote Southwestern Real Estate as a part of this podcast is because this podcast is really honest about the book experience. It has a variety of people who are on here who are talking about what really happened with them. And the truth of the matter is, we all know there's some goofy stuff that happens when you're selling books. Some of it's not so great. Some of it's just absolutely life-changing. What we wanted to do is take those fundamental building blocks and grow that up into an adult version that people can really take to the next level of their maturity and their mental health. And that's how we have built Southwestern Real Estate, is taking the best of the book field and growing it up to fit adults.
Awesome. Hey guys, this is Pedro Vega with Cardinal Senior Benefits. I'm talking about leads today. Okay, leads are a system for getting in front of people. So we're not just working harder. Obviously, we all know how to do that, 80 hours a week, yada, yada, yada. But working smarter. Instead of spending 70, 80% of our time just trying to find somebody, why not invest in leads that allow you to spend 60 to 70% of the time actually talking to somebody? It changed everything for me, changed my lifestyle, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So guys, thank you so much for listening. I hope you guys.
What up?
What's going on?
Dude, let me tell you, before we get just diving in, and I know I told you this a little bit before backstage, but I got to tell you, I promised this to the people, all 2 people listening. I'm just kidding. To our audience here. Some of them might remember you. Your name might ring a bell just because in Southwestern, it's pretty unique to have somebody who has a combination of I recruited a lot of people and I sold a lot of books. Like you had people who were legendary recruiters, you know, your Pedro Vegas, John Stewart's, Zach Reisberg's, right? Really solid people, leaders. And then you had people who sold a ton of books, but their teams would be like 2 people and barely like getting through the summer. So when you found someone like yourself and like Kyle Peters that we were talking about who could do both, I am always humbled because it's so hard to do both those, be good at both of those things. And then on top of that, be in the top level of those things in a company that is so competitive with this. So thank you for being on here. I was really looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too.
I remember, maybe we can just dive into this little advanced sales tip that I dropped into just so people understand. And I told you what it was, so maybe I'll just let you explain it. But this is when I first remember like seeing you. I was a GRS and I looked at your advanced sales talk and I was like, this is gold. And it had to do with recruiting. I kind of I kind of tried to remind you of it, but do you remember enough to kind of talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, we're just talking about, first of all, thanks for the awesome intro. I'm excited to be on the show. It's exciting. I love how when you talked about people who can recruit and they recruited big teams but didn't sell a lot of books, you used all the names. And then as soon as you're like, and the people who sold a lot but had crappy teams, you didn't use any names. So that was nice. I got that. So we were just talking about expectation and the power of expectation. And when you get a new rookie, you know, a lot of times, and this is true still in my job, is we ask people, what are your expectations? We're going to go through all this training. We're going to onboard you. You're going to go to sales school. You're going to get all of this training. And this is what Andres is referencing is when I'd hire a person to sell books, it's like, we're going to train you for 3 months. You're going to meet with me every single week. You're going to have your approach memorized. You're going to have your script memorized. You're going to go through all of this training. Then you're going to drive to Nashville. And we came from Montana. So, I mean, we're talking a 40-hour drive to Nashville. And on the way, you're going to be reciting it and practicing it. Then you're going to have an 80-hour sales week where you're in the parking lot doing all this. And all of that stuff is going on. Then we're going to drop you off in your area. What do you expect to sell your first week? And because we're still sitting on campus and it's a safe zone, people are like, man, I'll have 10 customers my first week. All right. So you have 10 customers. Let's just say, for example, you don't have 10 customers. You only have 5 or you only have 2. And they'll go, okay. I go, but now you're on your second week and you've had 80 hours of the job. You've knocked, you've shadowed, you know what the job is. What are you going to sell week 2? And they would almost always say 5. And I guess Andres was telling me we did this live with a kid sitting in the room. He's like, 5. I'm like, so me telling a story lowered your expectations by 50%. Like just me telling you it was a hard week destroyed your expectations by 50%. The power of our mind and context and our own belief in ourselves can be shattered just by someone telling a story. What do you think the doors are going to do to you? Like that's the power of self-talk, of having goals, of being unconditionally committed that I say 10, I'm going to get 10. And if I don't get 10, so I was just talking about this today with some of our guys, like when you set goals, there can't be emotion about them. You've got to have emotion to hit them. But when you say, hey, this week I'm going to go sell X, the only reason you say that number is so at the end of the week, you can measure, did I hit it or not hit it? And what do I have to do to get there? But you only change your number if something else changed. Like I said 10 and I missed it, but I also broke my leg. It's like, okay, well, maybe in that case, we can lower your goal a little bit. But if it's just like, oh, it's harder than I thought. Cool. So now it's 10, but you've got a lot more work to do. Do not change your goals. Let's go.
Dude, even just that. All right. It's been a good episode. Hey, thanks for being on.
Yeah, man. It's been a blast.
Catch you guys on the next one.
Good to see you.
Dude, even just that mentality. Like, and for me, I'll tell you how it impacted me. So my brother was sitting in on this, and this is actually how I recruited him because he didn't really do any of the training. He was still in high school, and I'd call him and say, "Hey, have you practiced your sales talk?" And he's like, "Yeah." But he's a high school kid, you know, like, and he was graduating early, so he was 17, and so I flew him to GRS, And after seeing that part, I think this right here, this point you're driving home, really shifted his expectations of what he was getting himself into. And then all of a sudden he was like, oh, like you mean like, you want me to do this? And I go, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he went in and now he's a DSM. So good job.
That's awesome.
You did it.
Well, I recruited a DSM.
You did.
You know what's funny? When you say your brother was in high school, when Peter sold before I did, and I was working at a hospital. I was like cooking and serving food for old people, and I was really good at washing dishes. He was gone that summer, and he couldn't. Here's what's funny is he definitely left his phone on, because I remember calling him and he would answer it. And then I came out and sold, Peter. And then I came out and sold books, and it's like, don't ever turn your phone on. And this is the moment where I realized that, okay. But I would call him and he would send me pictures. And so I remember 3 pictures, and I don't have them, or I would have sent them to you. One was a basketball hoop that was ripped off. And it's because his district sales manager, Mike Lippert, was shadowing him and helping him sell, and dunked a homeowner's basketball and like ripped this dude's basketball hoop apart. And they had to go back and give him money. And he thought that was pretty funny. And then the other picture he sent me was just a pile of money. Like, it was during delivery week. He's like, look at all this. It was like a pile of money. Yeah. And then there was a pie in the eye picture. And his recruiting of me, I don't know how you recruited your brother, but his was like, you want to come sell books? And I said, sure. I don't actually know if I knew I was knocking on doors until sales school. Yeah. Like, I don't think I even really knew what the job was. I was just like, I'm in, and I memorized my sales talk. Same.
Yeah, that was Danny too. So Danny, when we've told this story a couple times, but not, I guess, with this approach to it, but he was not prepped. I mean, he was in high school. And what was hard too is so in Nebraska, high school doesn't get out until like May 30th.
Okay.
But at that point, I'm already in the field. Like, I'm already knocking. It's like week 2. So I'm hoping this 17-year-old kid is even going to drive from Grand Island, Nebraska to Nashville in one piece. I don't know if he'd ever even driven on an interstate. Like, all right, just get to Yvette, and she'll take care of you from there.
Yeah.
But yeah, same. I mean, I think it wasn't until Sheridan McDonald was the one that did his sales school, and I don't think he realized exactly everything he was getting into, even though I told him. Even though there was multiple times where I'm like, hey, here's what's going to happen. Like, this is what I did.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sugarcoat it, because I was almost like negative selling him. Like, it sucks, right? But he'll still say, I don't know if I knew exactly what was happening until until I get to Nashville. And then, he had no choice but to stay because I was doing it.
Yeah.
He can't quit because of me. Like,
sorry.
It's your brother. Come on, you got to get. But it's interesting. Does your brother ever tell you, about how hard, or I guess first let me ask this. Are you guys close? I'm assuming you guys are pretty
very
close.
We work together. We live together.
Sure.
We don't live together. We live 2 miles down the road from each other. Our kids go to the same school. We both have 4-year-old twins. We go to the same church.
Wait, you each have 4-year-old twins?
Yeah. So he has a boy and girl twin that were born 2 months before our. I just do everything Peter does. That's just all it is. I just do it slightly better than him. That's our whole life. He's my mom had him. My mom had me. I was like, okay, I guess I'll be born too. He went to Staples Elementary. I followed him there. He went to St. John's. He worked at the hospital. I worked at the hospital. He went to St. John's. I went to St. John's. He sold books. I sold books. We sold alarms. He had twins. I'm like, fine, F it. I'll have twins too. So that's,
he developed a personality, and you probably took his. That's what Danny did.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a joke from Hassan Minaj.
Okay.
He goes, all the older siblings, they don't get enough credit. We went to war on your behalf for mom and dad. Like, when we set the standards as far as like what the boundaries you can't cross.
Right.
You just never got in trouble because you were like, got it.
Yep. I knew exactly what not
kitchen
to do.
On fire. Got it. Or whatever. So he goes, but the thing is, I have a personality too, says my little sister. Oh yeah? Where do you think you got that from? Me, the older brother.
That's
so
what's
just
up.
So you know.
Yeah.
I'm on Peter's side.
All right.
But so I guess the reason I was asking if you guys were close is because then it must have been hard for him, because I remember, and I'm not a parent, so I don't know what this might be like. I'm assuming this is kind of what it was like to drop your kid off at kindergarten the first time. But when you drop, I mean, he was 17. I dropped him off at the house, and the older brother instinct, and we've been through life kind of crazy. We had to move here because we were going to get murdered. So we've stuck together through these things. Yeah, okay. It's a long story.
Okay.
But We can get into that later if you want. But anyway, like, and then just dropping him off and then knowing exactly what was about to happen to him. You know, it's hard. It was hard to drop him off. So I'm sure Peter remembers that day pretty clearly too, if he was the one that did.
No, he put me in a different HQ, man. I don't even live with him.
He didn't put you in his own HQ. What an asshole.
Dude, I could give you the abbreviated version, but so we still do like, we still work with college kids. And so I'll do like a keynote speak and I'll talk about the 10 times I wanted to quit before I ever knocked on a door. And I've got a whole, like, here's all the crap. I used to call it my shit storm. Like that was how I described it when I was selling books. So man, there's so many different places I could go on this, but he recruited me to hire me. I tried to quit on him the day before I left. You know, he punched me in the chest. It's like, get your ass in the car. He knew exactly what it was. We got to sales school. On the way to sales school, I ran over a tire and like ripped out my catalytic converter on my car. And so I had to ride with somebody else down there. I didn't have any of my luggage, none of my food. Like I had nothing. I get to sales school. Sales school was great. But there was one guy who I didn't want to live with. And of course, that was who I had to go live with for the summer, and ended up loving him, like absolute phenomenal roommate. But I was like, and they sit down, they're like, all right, so who do you want to live with? Okay. And who would you not want to live with? I'm pretty sure they just circle whoever that is, because that was exactly what happened. I was like, I'm not even living with you. Like, what the frick is going on? But,
wow.
You know, he's always been protective of me, just cause he's a big brother, sometimes to a fault. But I'll tell you the hardest thing ever, some people know this, some people don't, but my first week, I didn't sell anything. I sold nothing on Monday, nothing on Tuesday, nothing on Wednesday, nothing on Thursday. On Friday, I sold to a lady named Tracy who filled out the order for me, just like Roger Sipes style, like filled it out. And then a pregnant lady named Rebecca at like 9:45, you know, get that little nighttime sale. And then nothing on Saturday. And at our first Sunday meeting, we were doing our little PC and I was crying. I cried every single day for my first 2 summers at some point. And I was just crying with him. And I remember he looked at me and genuine question. He said, I have to know, are you actually working? And I was like, I've never wanted to hit you. I was like crying. I was hurt. It's emotional to still talk about it. Cause I was like, I'm working harder than anybody else. I just suck. Like I can't figure it out. I don't know why. I'm too robotic. I did theater. I was too, I don't know, but it was, and I was like, fine, Peter, I'll just do everything you tell me to do. And then when I suck, it's your fault. And that didn't work out too well. So I guess I ended up doing okay. Now I got to give him all the credit.
See, that was the checkmate I was wanting to get to, is just so, because my brother will never give me all the credit, but you know, indirectly you just did. So,
oh, dude, Peter helps me so much. He, you know, it's like he is definitely more of a pioneer than I am, but I'm a perfectionist way more than he is. So we're that's why we work so well together. We're a 1-2 punch. He's like, hey, we got to do this. And I'm like, cool, I'll figure out how to do it. And that's always been the kind of 1-2 punch that we have. And yeah, it's cool. It's, I told him one day, I was like, man, it's gotta be a lot of pressure on you to like know that, like, he has to subconsciously know that everything he jumps into, I'll jump in behind him, which is a lot of pressure for a big brother.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And Danny and I had a relationship like that up actually until Southwestern. After Southwestern, I kind of left and he stayed. And so like now we're all kind of doing our own things, but I can speak to that as an older brother. There is some sort of like, almost the pressure is the right word, but there's also another pressure of like, just not failing is hard. And Danny and I actually kind of had we'll get deep. All right. Danny and I actually kind of had a bit of a falling out during our time, because what happened is I had a really great first summer, you know, PC, pace setter, blah, 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 top 10, all the cool accolades that at the time seemed to matter more than anything else in the world.
Yeah.
Which is why I don't blame Danny for what happened or how he reacted to what happened. Then my second summer did okay. Third summer, way off schedule. Fourth summer, on schedule physically, but mentally I was like, I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
So it was just, might as well have been the same thing. And it was the first time I had let him down as a big brother, you know, I failed at something. And because, you know, growing up, it was always like us two and, you know, same thing, pioneer. And then he like would follow up and like just do better at the thing I was trying to do.
Yeah.
Which is great. As a big brother, you feel proud in a lot of ways for that. But then we had a bit of a falling out. And so ever since then, we kind of do our own thing. But now our relationship is more like, I just know that what he's doing is the right thing for him. And he knows that what I'm doing is the right thing for me. And that trust is like it's like ascension. It's like another level of like trust and like that we have and when, you know, it's nice.
Here's one thing I've learned. So I've watched, there was my 7th summer. I don't remember, one of those years we had, this is when I learned this lesson. So maybe if your brother watches this will help, but, unless he's already passed it, but there was a girl on our team. And at the end of the summer, we were getting ready to do deliveries and I got a call from Ritzer and it was like, hey, her remittances are not high enough. Like we can't ship her books. You got to talk to her. I was like, all right, let's go sit down. And I started asking her questions, her and her student manager. And I was like, all right, so what's, help me understand why your remittances are at like 30%. And we dug a little bit deeper. And the end of the story is she had sold like nobody the entire summer. And all of her customers were made up. All of her delivery
patter.
Everything, not just a patter. It was all fabricated, everything. And I asked her, and I mean, we had given her recognition and all these different things. And I was like, I go, first of all, who are the people? And she's like, oh, those are all the jerks. I'm like, nice. At least you had picked some creative customer names. But I actually had a lot of, I don't know the right word. Pity's not the right word, but can you imagine spending an entire summer knowing you're lying? Like the amount of pressure that you feel, or somebody not quitting because they don't want to let you down. Like to do what you did and have a couple of off schedule summers, but not quit and not throw in the towel. And like the pain that you were probably going through for 12 or 13 weeks, that's a lot of pain. It's a hell of a lot harder to do it, to stay out there doing a job you hate, but also not quitting. That's hard. And then to live with that and to know the culture of Southwestern and what are people going to think of me and I can never say it and I can never that's a really hard place to be in. And look, we're all like, you're what, 21 years old when that happened?
Yeah.
Like how much do you know about the world at that point? We just know I'm in this microcosm called Southwestern where I can't quit anything and I'll never go anywhere. And what would be the right thing to do? To talk to somebody, to get coaching, to do all that. But that's like, there's the right thing. There's what we could have done. There's what we should have done, but then there's what we did. And we can't go back and change what we did. We can learn from it. And hopefully the people who are looking at it from the outside can recreate what we were in. I mean, I can only imagine with your younger brother, because was he doing pretty well?
Yeah.
Like you're being outperformed by your younger brother. So you're not going to quit because you know how that would affect him. You're not going to leave because you know the impact that's going to have on him. You're not going to puke all over him because you can't puke down. You got to puke up. So like you're just, I feel for you, man. I feel where you were at. And being a younger brother, I also know what it's like to have a big brother that lets you down and to hold on to that for a little while. So there's a lot there, man.
There's so much there. And it was interesting because, you know, some of it was everything you just said. Like I would say a good half of it was that, at least that. And it's hard to say now, right? The other half is I just needed distance from home. My parents just got divorced after 22 years of marriage, and the whole story of us moving here because of this, you know, threat on our lives. And we went through all this crazy shit to just even make it to this point. We became citizens, and then they get divorced. So there was like, I think when you, the word that struck the most, what you said, there was a lot of pain. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the pain that I'm not alone in that. There's a lot of pain that people feel when they know that they're doing the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm.
But they almost have to do the wrong thing because the right thing isn't going to be any less painful. So you're like, why would I switch over? Like, why would I go do that?
You got to choose your hard, right? Choose your hard.
And at the end, I mean, at the end of it ended up being what I needed, right? So then I left, and then here we are. Because I say I got the full Southwestern experience.
Yeah.
Right. Because I know what a summer is like when you're just on and it works. And I know what it's like when you're not. And that's the full experience. I pity those actually that never got off schedule.
That's me.
You don't even know.
Oh, you pity me. All right.
Yeah. Oh, I pity you. Hard. You know why? Because you don't know what it's like to go to a movie.
Oh.
At a foreign movie theater at like 2 p.m. on a Tuesday in July. I'm so sad. That's the only part.
Hey, I did that when I sold alarms. I saw Transformer, and I immediately called my brother afterwards. I'm like, dude, I am so sorry. I did the thing just because I knew that it was a thing. This would have been the equivalent of like summer number 11 for me, like way on. And I'm like, this sucks. I got to go to a movie just to sucks.
Feel again.
Oh, and it was Transformers.
Nice.
It was a shitty movie. Anyways,
it is, but that's the sad part. That's the only part I pity. No, but on a serious note, like, there is something to be said about just having that experience as well. Cause I needed that in my life at that moment. It was the worst thing for me, but at the same time, because it was the hardest thing for me, but it was the best thing because it just gave me a ton of perspective later on. But anyway, okay. So that was a great start. Look at that. 20 minutes in, it's just solid.
Yeah,
let me jump into some questions. Let's just continue the thread of Southwestern first, and then we'll jump into kind of chronologically where you left and what you're up to now.
Sure.
So that's how you got recruited. That's how your first summer went. Now, I guess the first question that comes to mind, just so we can kind of get a 30,000 foot view of your experience, and maybe we can dig in. But you you sold nothing your first week, and your brother's questioning your integrity.
Yeah. I mean, I sold 14 units my first week.
Oh, sorry. You made in 2023 after inflation, you made roughly $80.
It was bad. It was not good.
$102.
Yeah.
So you go from that to then at some point you become the number one person in the world that did that program, that did that job for that amount of time, right? What state were you in when you did that?
Sixth summer was Pennsylvania.
In Butler, Pennsylvania.
Butler, PA.
That was this, as Dave, who was it, Dave Rosen, or who said that, like the number one person that sells, this is the smartest community in the country.
That year? Oh, yeah.
I can prove it because you're talking to this is the most well-educated part of the country, county in the whole country. But on a serious, so you go from 0 or 14 units to this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of walk me through the trajectory of that growth, and then we can dig into the specifics in the summer, but like generally, how did you ascend to that?
Yeah, I'll go 30,000 as I can. So first summer, I think nowadays some guys are selling some big units again, but it was a 3,700 units my first summer. So nothing crazy, but that was, I finished strong. Let's put it that way. My second summer, upstate New York, yeah, man. Lived in Dunkirk, New York. God's country. That was 7,200 units. That was a fun summer. And then my third summer was actually my biggest units. It was 12,000 and some. And that was hit more like 7 times. And that was I've got some stories from that summer. That was a good time.
Yeah.
But that was all me. It was just me. My third summer, I recruited a buddy from college. He was the number 2 rookie, Dylan Ballantyne. Sold 1 summer, but cool dude. Fourth summer, recruited a big team. Everyone quit except for one person, Jacelyn Tobble. She ended up working with us for like 6 years. My fifth summer, I moved to Montana, and I recruited six people. They all finished the summer, and one of them, I'm good friends with all. Christy Rivers, married to AJ Skalski.
Yeah.
Like Christy was on that team. Jamin Daly, who works for Tony Robbins now, he was on that team. Like we had some studs in that organization. That was when I learned how to actually lead a team. That was my fifth summer. And then my sixth summer, Butler, Pennsylvania. I had just done the Landmark Forum in the spring. And if you're not familiar with that, Landmark Forum, it is a 4-day seminar that helps you overcome and confront things that have been holding you back in life. How's that? So I did Landmark, and I got very clear that helping other people and not having an inward focus all the time and actually caring about other people and not being so selfish, frankly, is what life is all about. And I got clear that I could choose my emotions. I read, you said the favorite scroll for most people is the I'll Be Master of My Emotions. That comes up a lot. I read that every single day for 9 summers, every single morning. That was what I read. The scroll mark 2 was the verse that we had read at our wedding. So I married a book girl, Mackenzie, who I met my 7th summer. So we didn't have a Bible verse. We had the scroll mark 2 read at our wedding, and I had 6 bookmen standing next to me, and I married a book girl. It was fun.
That's so cool.
But my 6th summer, it was adversity filled. They say that the 2 times that I was number 1 in alarms and in books, both of those summers contained my worst sales week since my first summer in both industries. So during my 6th summer, my start was the worst start I'd had of any summer since then. I was so focused on everybody else. I was so my habits were awesome. I was selling hard. I was doing everything I could. I was in this Cranberry Township. You can't sell past 6 p.m. It was the weirdest little, Virgie had sold a crap ton of books there. So she's like, you're going to love Cranberry. And I hated Cranberry and
terrible aftertaste.
Just hated it. There we go. But I ended up, driving north, and it was really a summer of living and working to serve other people. It was the first summer that I would say I was fully focused on service. My team, the customers that I had, I was having more fun than I'd ever had in the job before. My roommates were awesome. My HQ was awesome. I loved all the people that I was encountering. It was just, and I always say this, it's not, I didn't have fun and get fulfillment because I sold a lot of books. I sold a lot of books because I was having fun and feeling fulfilled. That's the way that it works. And so I was just in a world of fulfillment and fun and grace and service. And every single doorstep, I remember telling myself, I am cool, calm, and confident. I'm about to meet the coolest person I've ever met. And I was consistent with that all summer long. So that would be what happened.
That was okay. And we can get into the weeds of this too, because I love, we don't judge on units here, although you are your units.
I'm such a unit head. I was just teaching self-talk to the guys I work with. My best self-talk was when I started counting units and they had no idea what I was talking about. I was I just start yelling random numbers in my car, 17, 45, 232, 406, because I would count them in my head and then it would mess with me. So I'd always have some kid shadowing me and they're like, what is weirdo? Yeah, dude, I know my best day in units. I know my best, I know all of that. It just won't go away.
Good.
Won't go away.
Good. That's that. I mean, I remember all those things, but I can't imagine what it's like to remember all those big ones. You must have had so many of those big ones.
A couple.
But when you were doing this, so, okay, again, we don't care about units. However, it does say something about your ability to learn and grow.
Yeah.
In some way. So when we do have someone on here who kind of has your trajectory of 0 to boom, we had Dave Brown on here.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about how you were able to do that. Because there's also another aspect to it, which is you were recruiting a lot. And
yeah.
I want to get into that as well. But from the production standpoint, everybody's goal who was in the top 10 worldwide that summer was I was going to be number 1.
Yeah.
But why was it you? And if you ask them all, it's I knew I was going to do it. But it's okay, but only one of you had to be right, So
yeah.
For you, what changed? What really happened to when did it click that was going to happen or that you could do that?
I don't actually recall ever writing down anywhere that I was going to be the top rep in the company.
That's interesting.
I don't believe I ever actually wrote that down anywhere. I wrote down my unit goals because I'm not in control of what everybody else is doing. I'm just in control of what I'm doing. And if I happen to be doing better than everybody else, then I will win. Cool. I mean, when I'm, I go dark, I go blind. At Southwestern, it was great because you never knew what anybody else was selling. So I could just focus on what I was doing. In alarms, we knew there was a digital dashboard, the whole thing, and I could just see what was happening. the year I finished number one in that company, with a month to go, I blocked a whole bunch of phone numbers. I coached Peter. I was like, hey, I don't want to hear a single number. I unloaded the app off my phone. I didn't check a single stat. Like, I went dark for a month, and it worked out pretty well for me. I'm very competitive, but I'm not competitive because I like smack talk, but I don't like hearing smack talk. So I'm kind of weird like that. As simple as it sounds, it was always just goal periods. It was always like, I can't do this all year. I cannot do this for the rest of the summer. I don't even know if I can fricking do this the rest of the week, but I can do it for another hour and a half. And that's what I'm going to do. And that was probably my most common self-talk. Like, dude, I cannot do this another summer. I cannot. I don't even know if I can finish this summer. I don't even know if I can finish the week, but I can do it for 90 minutes. And there was, my last 2 or 3 summers, I probably called my mom or Peter every morning and just said, like, I don't want to, it's really hard. And there's a lot of other things I wish I was doing right now, but I'm here and I'm going to do this because I said I would do it.
I'm going to bring this up against for people who are regular listeners to this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but you just said something that had, I think, where it just clicked for me what you just said. Well, there's a couple things. One, you remind me of Shane Hertig. So like Dave Brown and we had Dave Rosen on here as well too. So like some other guys have hit big numbers, and gals have hit Yvette, and everybody's had a different answer to that.
Yeah.
Or at least nobody's had the same answer. Like Dave Brown said it was thinking big, whereas Yvette and Dave Rosen kind of said they were more prepared. You were more like Shane Hertig, where it was like, I didn't even know it was number one until we got to check out.
I mean, I'll be honest. I knew I was number one, and there's kind of a funny story about that I'd probably have to use the word mort a few times to tell that story.
Yeah. Well, I guess more for you said is it wasn't like your target.
No.
Like, it wasn't like you didn't sit down at one point at GRS or something and go, all right, I'm going to be the number one. It was more like, I'm going to do this number, and if that happens to be number one, cool.
Yeah.
And if not, which is a different approach. But what I find so fascinating about that is, or what I'm hearing more clearly from this is, Eric Plantenberg was on the show once, and one of the things he said that was really profound was, I don't want to give advice to anybody because it probably won't work for most people. Not because it's like I'm so cool, but because where I was and who I was at that time, that year, at that place, is a whole different person than most people listening. So the advice I give might actually hurt or not even help at all. And so this is what I did. But what you said was really interesting. I think it had more to do with your self-talk, because the training I gave Danny, the only training I ever take credit for really giving Danny that was good, was about self-talk. He goes, listen, I told him, I was like, listen, at sales school, you're going to hear people say shit like liquid sunshine for when it rains, or I'm the best.
Yeah.
And the deal is, you're not emotionally intelligent enough to be able to handle the lie that you're going to be telling yourself.
Oh, yeah.
So don't say
I'm having a great day. No, you're not.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
You're not. And the physical reality of your life and the irrationality of the book field is going to make the other voice believe, Mr. M, if you want to call it that, believe that you're lying. And so that self-talk is worthless.
Yeah.
What you want to say is the truth, which is kind of what you were saying. So I told Danny, like, if it rains, don't say it's liquid sunshine. Or
when it rains, it pours, that opens doors. No, it doesn't. Yeah, nobody answers the door. It sucks.
No, nobody wants to open the door. You're wet. Nobody wants to go inside their couch.
Yeah.
So here's, how about this? How about, so you say, hey, look, we're selling physical paper books in the rain.
Yeah.
Which is probably the worst product you can have to display. It sucks to be wet, and it sucks to be cold, and it sucks to be cold and wet with wet sample books. All of that sucks. And I mean, immediately hearing that, you're like, that's puking. Like, oh my God. But that's the truth, because it's objectively, it sucks.
So
now,
good.
I told him, instead, you'll say all of that out loud. And then after that, you'll follow up and you'll say, but I am a man of my word. I am a tough son of a bitch. And you know what? It doesn't matter what is going on outside, because I said I was going to do this, and I'm a man of my word. So I'm going to go knock him. And how much more powerful is that? Because you believe it.
Yeah. So when I talk about supreme self-talk, like the ultimate superpower, I call it self-conversation. And it's what you just said. It's contextualizing what's going on.
Yeah.
The only change I make is I don't know if you can see the tattoo on my wrist there.
And
It's a little and sign is instead of using the word but, I use and. Because but deletes everything in front of it.
true.
And but takes two completely separate things and makes them one thing that's a problem.
Yep.
I want to sell a crap ton of books, but it's raining outside. Now that's a problem. Or I want to sell a crap ton of books and it's raining outside. Now you have two separate things. They're totally, completely separate. So my self-talk was always like, it's hot. It sucks. I don't want to be here. I want to burn down half the houses that I just went to because everybody's a jerk and this town sucks. And I'm going to do it anyways because that's what I said I was going to do. And I'm not a quitter.
Boom. I mean, that's just so much more
Right back
powerful.
into
And a couple of things happen. One, you believe every single part of that.
Oh, yeah.
You started with the things that were the most apparently,
Mhm.
most apparent to you. So then everything else must make sense logically. And it grounds you presently. Like it puts you in the present because you're not thinking of the last store at that point. You're thinking of what's happening now and you're not thinking of the future because you're thinking about what's happening now. So you're like, take in inventory. It sucks now. It's hot now, but I am awesome now.
And I'm awesome now.
And I'm awesome now.
There you go.
So what do it's the same idea. My brother and I were rock climbing one time and he didn't like it. He goes, I don't like this. We're not supposed to, like, humans weren't made to climb. Like, what the heck? And I said, I know humans weren't made to climb, but mountains were made to be climbed. So I guess it's your choice. And he just goes,
got it.
And then
That's awesome.
I go, dude, that's the same thing with this. He's starting to become a DSM at this point. He goes, that's the same thing with the summer.
Yeah.
Like, nobody's supposed to go door to door, but doors were meant to be knocked on. So you choose.
It's this is a little tangent, and we'll just keep going. But
yeah, dude, roll with it.
So I was there's always so I've knocked on 120,000 doors at this point in my career. So I've been around almost 20 years. Yeah, and the reason I keep coming back is it's kind of like the doors are the gym, and you could take anybody. So, if you and I walked into the gym, there's a gym across the street from our office here. If we walked into the gym, we didn't touch any of the equipment. We didn't touch any of it. We just we didn't change anything. We just went over and started using it. There's going to be some equipment that's really easy and some equipment that's really hard. And there's some equipment we don't even know what it does. But we could, if we were actively seeking out a workout, we could find a workout and we could build muscle. And if we went back the next day, some of the things that were easy yesterday are hard today. And some of the things that were hard yesterday are easy today because all the weights have been changed. Follow? Because there were people in there. But I could go into the gym every single day. And if I was actively trying to build muscle, I don't even have to change any of the weights. I could find a way to do it. That's the same way the doors are. You go out on the doors, if you're actively looking to increase your communication skills, your organization, your persistent, your ability to motivate yourself, your respect, your perspective, your all these different things, like it's there for you. It's there every single day. And if you went to the gym every single day, eventually you get ripped or you stop going to the gym. If you keep knocking on doors and going in sales, eventually you become freaking awesome. Or you quit because you stop doing the equipment. You stop using it. And like, what's the point of going to the gym if you're not going to use the equipment?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And on top of that, it's not the only place that you can learn to be awesome.
But I 100% agree with that. Yeah.
It probably takes the same amount of time. It's probably something more along the lines of like, by the time that you've had, I don't know, 10,000 conversations with 10,000 different people, you have generally become aware of social cues or communication skills that
Completely
are
agree.
above par, right? Cool. Or below par, I guess, depending on how you want to score. But anyway, above average.
Yeah.
So the question then becomes, how quickly can I go see those 10,000 people? Well, when you go door to door, pretty quickly. You can do that in a few months if you really busted it, right?
Yeah.
So it's just to get to that benchmark. And the beautiful part about the bookfield is, generally speaking, like 99%, it's the great equalizer, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because there's people that sold a lot of books that were tall, that were short, that were skinny, that were fat, that were brown, that were white, that were men, that were women. Like it doesn't discriminate in a lot of ways. I'm sure there's whatever. I don't mean to overgeneralize, but overall, like you said, anybody could figure it out because it's just about doing the damn thing.
Yep.
And most people just don't.
Preach. That's it. That's
all right.
golden.
Now we can end the episode. All right, everybody. See. Dude, that's awesome. I'm relating a lot to the mentality, and maybe this is why I connected so much with that advanced sales, because I was like, this guy sees it the way I see it, but you're saying it the way I can't say it. So
Oh.
like, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
With this, one more thing about the growth, and then we can kind of dissect the summers, is on the recruiting side of things.
Mhm.
When you come back, did you have the same trajectory as far as like my second summer I brought one person and then eventually a big team, or were you always naturally like a good recruiter, or
No.
how did that side of it go?
No, I was not a good recruiter. I went to school for theater and math and would never have seen myself in sales. I got tricked in. Yeah,
I was in show choir and minored in math and majored in economics.
that's right.
I got your brain, bro. I got you.
And people will be shocked to know this. I'm actually, I've tried very hard on all of these, like, are you an introvert or an extrovert tests? I'm not an extrovert. I'm actually an introvert at heart who's just learned how to perform and turn it on. And like, it's weird. I would love to just sit in a room and read a book. And that's kind of like, that fires me up. Unless I'm on stage performing, because that also fires me up, but it's also very lonely to be on stage, right? Like when you're in front of the room, you're not actually with all those people. You're by yourself.
Yeah.
Anyways.
I feel you.
First time I tried recruiting my friend Dylan, and he said, no way, Jose. And that was it. I kind of gave up on recruiting. My second summer, I didn't recruit anybody. Then after my second summer, I made like $35,000, and I went to, I studied abroad, and I saw Dylan, same guy, at a bus stop in England, because I was going to go visit him. So we're like at a bus stop in England, hadn't seen him in 4 months. And he goes, so how'd you do this summer? Just like Dan says. And I was like, 35 grand. He goes, damn it. All right, I'll sell next summer. So that was my first recruit. And he outsold me, sold 5,000 units his first summer, like stud on a bike, just wild. And then my fourth summer, I recruited 5 people. Everyone quit except for one. Sixth summer, I recruited 7 people. One quit, Caleb Harrington. I cried my ass off in the car. It's the only time I've ever turned my phone on in 9 summers during the day. Sorry, there's 2 times I did it. One, I was having an allergic reaction, and I called Annette McCrae, and she said, oh, baby, you got to go to the doctor. I'm like, all right, I'll go to the doctor. I didn't even call Tim. I just called Annette. And then the other one was when I called my friend Sean Arthur, and I was bawling my eyes out. I was like, dude, this sucks. This Caleb kid, like I worked all hard. I worked with him all spring, and I wanted him to come to sell. And I know why he's here, and he didn't come up with a lot of money, and he's here. And I go, the worst part is he was standing outside my car. Like I can picture this parking lot. It was raining. There was mud everywhere. And he's standing outside the car. I said, Caleb, get in the car. He's like, I can't get in your car. I was like, get in my car. He's like, I can't get in your car, Jake. Because if I get in your car, I'm going to stay. And I really don't want to stay. And I was like, get in the car. He's like, didn't get in the car. He drove off, and I was like, And I called Sean. I'm like, dude, first of all, I shouldn't be calling you. Second of all, I am so mad. And I just like bawled and talked to him. And Sean, he goes, Jake, I got to tell you, man, this is the first time I've ever heard you care about somebody else more than yourself. I was like, oh, he goes, you're going to be a great leader. I'm like, well, I just called you during the day. I'm going to fail at life. Shouldn't turn my phone on. And he's like, just go back to work, man. So that was my summer where I learned to really, that was summer number 5. I learned to care about people. There was a day I called Tim on my call schedule at 3 p.m, and I'm like, dude, I don't feel like working. And he goes, your feelings, get back to work. You're leading people now. Sometimes you just have to work even if you don't want to. And that was a tough lesson to learn. And so then my 6th summer, coming to my 6th summer, I had all of these lessons in leadership. And I was like, I'd done Landmark, and I learned you got to care more about people than you care about yourself. And so I was so invested in learning about people. That summer, it was summer number 8 that happened. Nope, summer number 6. Yeah, summer number 6. I had one person go home. I had a 13-person team. I only had one person go home. And, it was a decision her parents and I made together to have her go home. But that was That was a pretty incredible summer in Pennsylvania. My 7th summer had my biggest organization, but I was a totally self-entitled piece of crap. And at the end of that summer, they all quit. And before my 8th summer, I basically had to completely rebuild again. I had 4, maybe 5 student managers that were still with me instead of the 13 to 15 that I thought I'd had. So when you met me, it was after building something, self-destructing it, and then building it again. And you got to have that. You got to have the setbacks to, someone said you got to have setbacks. Well, this Joel Osteen, right? Setbacks are setups for a comeback. I'm like, okay, thank you, Joel.
There you go.
There you go.
That's good. Write that down.
But that is,
that's good.
at any rate, that's what happened. And then, so it's been a learning process, and leadership for me and people for me has always been the harder part of the job. It's easier for me to be alone selling stuff and looking at numbers than it is to take the time to listen and actually invest into other people.
Oh, I was going to ask you, like, what do you think came easier for you? But it sounds like it was the sales.
Oh, sales is way easier for me. Sales and like sales coaching, way easier for me. That's like we're always learning, we're always growing. That's one of the things I'm currently I'm developing within myself is when I'm with people, being with them and not letting my brain be in 950 different places at once.
Yeah, it's tough. That's tough to do.
Yeah.
I've learned that's hard to do doing this, because you're like, holy cow.
You're thinking about the next question. What are you gonna ask? What are you gonna say? Or not that?
Yeah. Well, kind of. I mean, I think the only thing that makes me good at this is that I'm naturally curious.
Okay.
And so like the questions come because I'm actually just asking. And I think because I don't do pre-approach, it's like it helps that's why it helps really a lot.
Yeah.
But it's more the emotional drainage from, because what'll happen is, like, I remember the most episodes I've recorded in 1 week so far, I think I did 10 or something like that, 10 or 11. But in a lot of ways, like, because and people would tell some heavy, impactful stories about discoveries about themselves or life or failures and overcoming, and overall it was good because they're where they're now. But hearing those over and over, and then you get down to like the 11th or 10th one, and you're going into the last one, like, you just feel numb. You're like, it's kind of like doing a bunch of PCs. I'm not saying that these episodes are PCs, but do you know what I'm saying? It's by the time, by like on Sunday meetings, you were tired, not physically, you just
mentally exhausted.
Every person in it's same vibe. But it is hard, like you're saying, like it's hard to just really be like, all right, I'm hungry, I'm tired, but I need to like give this person everything, because it could be the difference between, success and failure for them. And so it's hard. I get that, man.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy one over the other, even though you're better at sales? Do you think you enjoy the other one better, or do you enjoy still selling more than recruiting?
Well, I'm gonna say those two things are the same thing. So selling and recruiting are the same thing. I enjoy both of those very much. And I also enjoy creating relationships and diving in and learning about my people. I'm just not as good at it. And it's more painful for me because I'm like, I mess it up sometimes. I still mess that up. Like
what?
It's always confrontation. It's like, I have a very blunt way of saying things. And sometimes if I have someone who's not the same personality type as me, and I just like, well, why don't you just do this? And then they get mad at me. I'm like, well, screw them. Fine. Screw you. I don't want to work with you. But you're not going to build a company and an empire if you just have that attitude. Like, my attitude has to be, screw me for not having the patience to understand who they are and how they process information, and to follow the platinum rule, which is to treat people the way that they want to be treated, not just the way I want to be treated. But, understanding who they are, what their coaching style is. And then it becomes fun. Frankly, once you learn this stuff, it's all fun. I had not put as much time into that piece as I did learning how to sell and recruit and play the numbers.
And to be honest with you, it's probably a less replicable art form. I mean, it is sales, but it's a different kind of sale. Like, because one of them is you're going to sell solar system or solar or books to someone, and you'll keep up with them. But generally speaking, it's like, you got your solar panels, I got paid, see ya. But like recruiting is, like a marriage more like it's
Oh, yeah.
or till one of you death or two of you part or whatever, but like
you're either gonna work with me
build.
forever or you're gonna quit. Those are the only two
Yeah.
outcomes. So
Yeah.
probably the
Or
second
like
one.
or like the company, or like we decide to sell the company and we just leave.
Yeah,
But that's less likely. So yeah, it's one of those like.
And
so
I'm not even
while
saying
you're
quit as a
there-
bad thing. I'm like, you're either going to be here forever or you won't. And
Yeah,
probably you won't. So I just want you to look
statistically
back.
speaking.
Yeah. I just want you to look back and say, that was the inflection point. That was the pivot point in my career. What I learned, what I got, who I became, like, just like Southwestern did for us. Like that's still our goal, is that people look back and say, man, I loved working at Genesis because my life was headed this way and now it's headed this way. And that is freaking awesome.
This we're going on a tangent still. I'm sure we'll go back to Southwestern stuff, but since we're here, so let me talk to you about Genesis. So
sure.
A couple of questions on this that I found just really impressive or found really curious is, one, I mean, we got to talk about your track record since 2020 and that's pretty huge growth. So can you shed some light on some of the like the secrets behind that, or some of the things that you guys are catching yourself doing right to enable that?
Yeah. Excuse me.
Oh, dude, it's all right. That's great, Jan.
Pound another one of these Celsius.
Yeah, dude.
So I believe the deck was stacked a little bit for us when we got into solar, because it was Peter and I, and we've been recruiting and working together for a very long time. We've been, he and I had been teammates for 7 years in the alarm industry. We sold books together. We've been best friends since we were toddlers. So, and we both had the framework of Southwestern. We both believed that you sell people on a vision, and then you help them to better themselves. You create goals. So like the foundation of what we've been doing, we'd already been doing for 20 years or for 17 years, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like we were both working at Papa John's and decided to start a solar company. That'd be a very impressive story. We were already in the business of recruiting and knocking and selling. We just changed the product. And there's a book by Keith Cunningham called The Road Less Stupid. And we read that right away when we started the company. And it talks about paying the dumb tax. And I bring that up because we have paid a lot of dumb tax in the last 3 years, like a lot of dumb tax, where if we go back and we're like, let's jump in a time machine, we're the only people in the world that we'd go back to COVID. Like, let's go back to the summer of 2020, because there's some things we would have told ourselves in August, like, hey, this is how you should structure the organization. Here's the pay scale that you should use. Here's the markets you should get into and the markets you should avoid. So we've learned a lot of things along the way. But one of the metrics that we look at, because we're very like numbers oriented, and I've got assigned Billy Bean baseball in my office. Like, I'm very into that world. We look at our net key people month over month. And as long as we're increasing our net key people, we're doing great. So sometimes we have big months, sometimes we have small months, sometimes we have great weeks, sometimes we have down weeks. But if our leadership team of people who are bought into the mission and here for the long haul, if that's increasing, we're going to be fine. And that has increased month over month consistently since day one. And so it has been a focus on, when you have the right people with the right mentality, you can build something great. And I think a lot of companies, we've also focused very early on with our core values. And I think there's a lot of companies that have core values just so they can have a sticker on the wall.
Yeah.
And that's just like, we've embodied the core values. Like, this is who we are. We are going to be a black hole in the good way. Like, we're going to have culture and beliefs, and we're not going to shy away from what we believe in. And if you love that, you're going to get sucked in and not want to go anywhere else. But if you don't, you're going to want to stay the hell away from us.
How did you determine those? I mean, if you can share what they are,
yeah.
If you're, I don't know if that's
absolutely.
Marginal, but how did you just come upon them?
Offsites, sit down in a room with some peyote and figure it out. We didn't do the peyote part, but it was a long discussion.
It was ayahuasca.
God actually told us all three of these.
I saw him.
So there we were in Peru, right?
We never have seen a color this beautiful.
Jimmy Powers brought us, or Jeffrey, or whichever one of them brought us.
Oh, we love you, Jeff. That's funny.
So I sold with all of the Powers, by the way. I sold my first summer. Franny was the first student manager I watched cry on the bookfield, and she was so mad. She's like, I'm not supposed to cry in the car. You're not supposed to see this. I'm like, this is exactly what I need to see because I cry every day. This is great. And then there was Henry Powers, who was her cousin who sold with us that summer. And then 2 years later, Mary Ellen started, and then Jeffrey, and there's Jimmy in there as well. Jimmy was one of my students. I love the Powers.
What a family.
What a family.
Just a
A
quick
powerhouse.
tangent. I'm glad that you said that.
Oh.
He would introduce Mary Ellen. He would introduce at like get backs. He would be like, Mary Ellen would have Jeff would be on stage, and then Mary Ellen would be up next. And he goes, and now next up, we have the hottest piece of ass in this entire company, my sister, Mary Powers. And he would just,
So weirdos, man.
so crazy.
Love
Anyway,
it.
okay, sorry.
So our core values. So we
Cultures,
came up
yeah.
with, what are they? And they can't just, your core values can't just be a saying. They have to be, they're true core values if you make decisions at your company based on them.
Mm-hmm.
Easy as that. So core value number 1, extreme ownership. And that's Jocko Willink. That's like
Great book.
everything is your fault. And, and I think done the wrong way, extreme ownership, if people are explained, I'm going to take extreme ownership, sometimes they will let you take extreme ownership so they don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to explain it like, no, that's not the way it works. Like the way extreme ownership works is we all find where we were responsible for the outcome, not just one person. Now, if you guys aren't going to practice it, sure, it'll be one person. Did you watch the show Succession? Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Did you watch the whole thing?
I'm like 4 episodes from the final.
Okay. I don't think I'm going to ruin anything, but there's
Honestly, at this point,
dude, you have to watch it. It's like a little bow on the top. It's so good.
all right. Okay. I believe you.
So, but there's a scene where Kendall is talking to Roman, and Roman like messed something up. And this was like, I was like, this is extreme ownership. It was extreme ownership and confrontation. Kendall says to him, he's like, yeah, you effed it. Like you totally effed it. And it's my fault for putting you in that position. And then Roman goes, yeah, you're right. I effed. Like they were both taking ownership and also recognizing that he did mess up and they both had fault in it. It was really cool. I was like, that's cool.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
Extreme ownership. Number 2 is contribution. And we're going to contribute to our customers and we're going to contribute to all of our employees. And sometimes that means we take a phone call from a competitor who had a system installed on their house and it's not working and they somehow called us by accident and we spend 45 minutes fixing it. And it's not even our customer, right? We're going to contribute to them any way that we can. When we have people on the team who, we want them to leave looking back saying, Genesis made a contribution on my life. And for our customers, whether or not they buy from us, they're going to remember us. And it's our name on the billboard and we're right in our own community and we see these people at church and we want to make sure that they're left with a smile. They're left in the good mood. That's contribution. And then our third one is sustainability. Easy buzzword for solar, but it really just means let's create a business that we can be in long-term. Let's do it. There is no gray area. There's black and there's white. There's legal. There's illegal. There's ethical. There's unethical. And we are going to fall on the right side of that line everywhere because that's how we can do this for a long time. If we're doing it in a way that I don't want to be able to sleep at night, that's not a sustainable business. If we're doing it in a way where it's pedal to the metal, 800 hours a week, both of our wives hate us like that, that's not going to work either. So we've had to, what are the positions and what are the hours and how do you work? And you can work hard for a season, but not all the time. Dave Brown, double time, part-time, full-time, free time. Like as long as there's balance, you can have sustainability. And so all of those pieces work together. And then we've got our performance core values as well. And that's a different thing, but that's relentlessness, professionalism, and why can't I think of the word? It's oppressively constant.
Oppressively constant?
Yeah, when you're oppressively constant, why can't I think of the word?
I gotta Google this now. This is such a cool definition. Oppressively, I love that.
Oppressively. Tell me what the word is. Now I look like a fool because I can't even think of my own performance
you
metric.
look great. You're doing great. Let's see. I'll send an oppressively constant. I just look up definition.
Professionalism. Oh, exceptionalism.
Exceptional.
Professionalism, exceptionalism, and relentlessness.
Ooh, that's good.
And
Damn,
that's
so cool.
That's how we do the job. Core values, who is the company? How do we do the job? With professionalism. Professionals perform whether they feel like it or not. Relentlessness. That is oppressively constant. I'm constant. You can count on me.
Now, okay, I have a question for you. So I love that you brought up like the whole like pedal to the metal, but then your wives would be upset.
Yeah.
Because that's actually something Southwestern did not teach a good job of. And it's not necessarily the word, I hate when people, not hate, but it's hard when people use the word balance.
Yeah.
Because it's also not the case. But it's just giving yourself permission to say, hey, you know, I have, my life exists outside of Genesis.
Yeah.
In your case. How do you balance that?
There is the idea of an ideal schedule is something that you can look at, because whether or not you have a schedule, you have a schedule. And a lot of people are afraid to schedule out their time because they're worried it's going to compress them and, it's going to be so constricting because I know exactly what I'm supposed to do it all the time. It is absolutely freeing to know what I'm doing all the time, because instead of working, at 60%, 100% of the time, I work 100% for 60% of the time, because I know exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. Like my day today from, 8:30 when I got here all the way till 5:00 when I leave, every single minute is accounted for. And I'm going to pour in every single minute that I have, because I'm away from my wife. I'm away from my kids. And if I'm going to be here, like goofing off, that's a slap in the face to her. Like that's so rude to her. If I'm going to, sorry, hon, I'm going to be away from you and I'm not going to be doing my best to provide for a family. Like that's just rude. And so when you take that perspective into it, because I sold for a few summers, while I was married and while I had kids, I was out in the field still. And it's like, if I'm going to be away from them for 2 weeks, I'm going to break freaking records, because what else? Why else am I out here? And so when you take that mentality into it, now it doesn't mean I'm not busy. I mean, right now I do that schedule. I go home, feed my kids, swim in the pool, put everybody to bed. And then I'm working from 8:00 to 11:00 most nights. I have date nights and things like that in there, but I'm building a business. I'm excited about it. I'm passionate about it. So I'm working, but I'm also very specific. Like there are times I'm going to be with my family. And if there's an emergency, I'll absolutely help out. But if it can wait till tomorrow, it's going to wait till tomorrow. And you have to have boundaries. And Ritzer actually did a pretty good job about that. He told me very early on, because I was pissed that he didn't answer my phone calls. And he goes, Jake, this is for my convenience, not yours. I was like, well said, Timmy. Because what cell phones do is cell phones give other people the opportunity to make their problems your problems.
Yeah. And they bring down boundaries because there's so much connection, which isn't always a good thing. Amen. Ooh, that's good. Write that down. Okay. Let's just go a more broad question. Why Genesis? Why 2020? Why not 2019? Why not this year? And why solar?
Get your popcorn. Let's go. This is a great story. Yeah. So so Peter and I were selling alarms. We might get a little political here, but that's okay. So we had grown our alarm, and it's funny because I don't even know if my politics are going to align with yours or not. So this could be fun.
Sure.
And it doesn't matter. I quit.
Good.
Okay.
Honestly, I've only gotten into like one debate. Yeah. Everything else has been pretty agreeable. So if this is another one, out of 220 something, let's do it.
I'm in the relentless pursuit of new perspectives on things, right? You have to be extremely open-minded, but that doesn't mean that you're flip-floppy on your convictions. It just means
you're agreeable.
You're open to the other side, right? I'm saying all this not even knowing, but okay. So
we're like exactly alike.
I'd probably
politics.
So we're so the summer is going. We had increased the size of our organization in the alarm world. We'd gone up and up and up and up. And we were ASU and GCU and all these different campuses. And our 2019 was our first dip in production. Wasn't that much, but it was a small dip. So we like pedal to the metal 2019. We're full on recruiting a massive, like an army of people. We were headed towards a better summer than we'd ever had. And February 2020, 15 days to stop the spread. And that killed, 10% of our group got scared, got cold feet. They were out. Then it was like a month later that all the college campuses shut down. And I know Southwestern went through a ton of crap and kudos to them for learning how to do referrals over Zoom. I bought some books and it was great.
Yeah. My brother actually did the first ever Zoom sale in the company's history.
Oh yeah. So it was probably me, but he's like, holy crap, it works. It's like Roger Sipe all over again. It works. So we were, and then we lost a whole bunch of our sales org because they were like, we're going home. Like, we're not going to go out and sell. We're going to go home. And we didn't know, could we sell? Could we not sell? We definitely were going to take our team to Texas because we knew like they didn't give a crap. So we can go to Texas. Yeah. Go to
there was footage of people throwing parties.
The country of Texas. So we went to Texas, US. Okay. So we ended up, our team dwindled from, God, I want to say 130, 150 people to like 70-ish. And we had a team in Houston and a team in Dallas. Peter and I looked at each other and we're like, hey, look, it's probably not going to function without us there. Like, they need somebody there. They need someone to lead the charge. Let's do this. You take 2 weeks on, I'll take 2 weeks on. Like, we'll go back and forth. We'll live in the Airbnbs. We'll run a sales school. We'll do the whole thing. So we were in Houston doing a sales school, and we had 25 guys in a room together doing execs, jumping up and down, all sweaty. Day 3 of sales school, one of the kids starts coughing. Oh. We end up, everybody had to get COVID tests. Everybody had to get blood tests to see if we had antigens, the whole thing. Not a single person tested positive except that kid. And there were 30 guys in that room. 15 of them said, we're going to go quarantine at an Airbnb for 2 weeks. The other 15 said, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm going to work. The quarantine kids, most of them quit. And it was also the summer of love, right? Like, peaceful protests and cities burning to the ground. Yeah. And we're selling in Dallas. Great to sell alarms in Dallas, by the way, when the city is on fire.
When security seems to be at risk.
It was a great sales pitch. Like, hey, the reason I'm here is, you see the smoke over there? Okay. Got a place to sit down? So it was a great, great sales pitch. But our team got smaller and smaller and smaller. And it was basically 40 people. And so it was the middle of July, late June. Peter and I are at this Airbnb in Arlington. We're both out there. It's our crossover time. He's on the phone with his wife. I'm on the phone with my wife, having identical conversations, but because of bro code, not telling each other what's going on.
Sure.
So I'm out and I'm talking to my wife, and she's like, I'm pregnant. We've got the twins at home. Like, there's crap going on in the city. There's still this like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? How is this sustainable? This is where sustainability comes from, right? Like, would you ever consider doing something different? And I'm like, no, I'm doing this forever. And she's like, I'm just asking if you consider. I'm not telling you to leave. I'm like, fine, I'll quit tomorrow. She's like, no, it's not black and white. Like, are you open to it? I'm like, okay, fine. I guess I'm open to it. Well, I guess Peter had almost the identical conversation. And we came in, and it was like out of a movie, man. We're sitting on the king size bed in this crappy little Airbnb, like kids again, laying on the bed, staring at the ceiling fan, just both clearly out of a heavy conversation. It's like, dude, what are we doing? Like, best case scenario, we're 3 years away from rebuilding where we were at, because we don't know what's going to happen with COVID. It's still like, there's so much
people
stuff.
Forget what it's like that summer. I was actually just having this conversation yesterday where it's like, if you really go back to like those first 6 months, it was, nobody knew what was happening.
I didn't know
and then the election was happening. And it's like, it was just, nobody knew.
Yeah. Like, I knew my feelings on it, but I didn't know what the rest of the world, I didn't know what was going to happen. So
nobody knew what was going to happen.
So we're like sitting there, and he goes, dude, I don't know what we're going to do, but like, you got to run the team. I'll be back in a couple of weeks. So he flew out, he left. It's my turn to run the team. And 5 days later, my wife called me. It was Saturday morning. I was out selling, and she said, I just pulled my back. She's pregnant with twins at home. And she's like, you have to come home. I was like, I can't come home. I never turned my cell phone on when I was working. Like, I can't come home. She's like, you got to come home. I was like, I can't. What? And I'm like, what do I do? Like, I have to go home, but I can't go home, but I have to go home. And so I called Peter, and I was like, Peter, I have to go home. And he's like, you can't go home. Like, I have to go home. So you can't go home. Who's going to lead the team? I was like, I don't know, but I have to go home. And he hung up, and I was in my car, and I remember I was just like screaming on the freeway. I was driving to nowhere. I was like basically paralyzed. I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do right now. Like, God, can you tell me what to do right now? Because I don't know what to do right now. I think I'm supposed to go home, but I don't know what to do right now. And my phone rang, and it was Peter. And I was like, hey, what's up? He goes, don't worry. Spencer and Klein are going to run the team this week. You can come home. It's like, oh, thank God. He goes, oh, and we're starting a solar company. I was like,
oh, what?
Do what now? He's like, we're starting a solar company. I said, well, at least you can ask me. Do you want you to ask me first? It's like, do you want to start a solar company? I was like, sure. Now, what's going on? What are we doing? And we spent the next 3 hours. I drove back to the Airbnb. I packed up all my stuff. I bought an airline ticket, got to the airport, went through security, I never hung up the phone the whole way. I learned everything that he had learned. I got home. What I found out is he left Texas, and he had a call with one of his coaches. I think it was his Tony Robbins coach. And she just said, Peter, if you could erase all of the sunken cost bias that you have into alarms, and you could just do anything, you could learn about any industry, you could jump into any one, what would it be? He's like, it'd be solar. It would absolutely be solar, because I know too many people who have left alarms to go sell solar that I've never heard of again, which is weird, because usually they like come back or they try to recruit you. He's like, I just need to know what's going on, because I think it's a pretty good industry. And he had gone back, and he went through his Rolodex and called everybody he knew that was in solar. And he started asking questions and listening and understanding and shadowing and learning about the industry. And by the time I got there, he said, even if you stay at North Star and take all of my residual and take over the entire organization and you just stay there, I'm going to go sell solar. That's how convicted I am on the industry. And so I spent a week learning about the industry, learning about the product. Man, it was, when I switched from books to alarms, I had a decrease between summer number 8 and number 9. And my commitment with Peter was, if I decreased, I would go shadow him selling alarms. And he's like, did you increase? I was like, no. He's like, all right, I'll see you Friday night. And I showed up 2 hours late, and I was super negative. And I shadowed him, and I watched him sell an alarm. And I remember thinking 2 things. 1, I'm better than him. And 2, I'm going to crush it. And I went and followed. Brothers. I know. So I went and shadowed a buddy who was selling solar, and I thought 2 things. I'm better than him, and I'm going to freaking crush this industry. Like, it is such a logical sale, because what kept me out of solar for a long time is people were selling it emotionally, and they were selling a product that didn't exist. And there was kind of a sweet spot around 2020 where the tax incentives and the interest rates and all of those things had lined up, where it's just, this is what you're paying. This is what you're paying. Why wouldn't you do it? And it was just such a logical win-win-win for the customer, the company, and the sales rep. Like, everybody was winning, and not to mention the environment, all those things. So we dove in. So I was the first sales rep at Genesis. We knocked on a door together. I had 5 sell in my first 2 weeks, working 3 hours a day in Birkenstocks. I was like, I just made 10 grand in 2 weeks. That's fun. And so then I was back out in the field managing the alarm team while also selling solar. I was like switching polos halfway through the day, but it was like an undercover agent. Nobody knew what I was doing. And so and then I came back, and I just started selling full time. And so I was setting, and then I learned how to close. And then from there, we recruited a few different people. We didn't actively recruit our sales rep from North Star. We wanted to attract them, not strong arm them or rope them in. We wanted to build something that they like. If you want to be a part of it, great. If you don't, great. Like, this is what we're doing, and here's exactly how we're going to do it. Here's our core values. Here's what we stand for. If you want to live in the gray, you're not welcome. Like, there are going to be people who join us who quit because they want to sell differently than we will let them sell. And that's, we're okay with that. So that was how we founded Genesis, September of 2020.
Where'd you get political? I didn't think you got political.
Just my opinions on like COVID and stupid and whatever.
Yeah.
Just, I think even referring to 2020 as the summer of love, I think some people would say. I
just call it the year of the pandy, which sounds like a Chinese year, which it kind of was.
It kind of. I mean, it's more and more looking the way it's always looked.
Will be remembered for COVID, and COVID will be remembered for China.
You know
what I'm saying, like, it's if it had been in Colombia where it got started, where I'm from, it would have been remembered for Colombia. It's not.
Well, like F2345, that virus. Sorry, you probably know better as the West Nile virus because it comes from West Nile. That's it.
Yeah. Sorry,
that's how that works.
That's kind of the idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Wuhan.
Yeah.
But on that, just for because if someone's listening, like, I can't believe they sold during COVID. It's Like, listen, they sold
Dude,
in a place where people
nobody
were willing
cared.
to,
I had
yeah, nobody
3
cared.
people all summer that were like, hey, there's a pandemic. I'm like, yes, and I'll go to the next door. Like, whatever.
I read a tweet about that, I think, and then you just
Yeah.
move on.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you were doing it in Portland, now you're like, I see why people would be upset, because it's like
Totally different. Yep.
they don't want you here.
Yeah.
They don't. Yeah. Anyway, but it makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, I look at that. We agreed.
I figured we would.
I thought we were like going into this like you're
No.
about to say something like heavy. I'm like, all right,
No,
sauce it up, bro. Let's go.
And so I'll say this too. So Peter and I have talked about it. Like, we're not going to shy away from our beliefs and sugarcoat things. Like,
yeah,
people are going to like you for what they like you for and hate you for what they hate you for. And that was like a superpower selling books, right? Because a lot of people, when they sold books, they put on a persona and they had their like, hey, I'm supposed to catch the homeowner. I'm guessing that's you. Yeah, I was just down talking with Mike, selling book, and they had all these weird mannerisms. I'm like, because it's easier to be fake and rejected, because then they're not rejecting you. But if you're yourself and you're authentic, then it is you. Like, sorry, you got to learn how to handle that.
So good. I do stand. I don't know if you know. I do stand up.
I've heard.
I've been doing stand up here in Portland, and my chiropractor went to watch one of the shows I just did, and he was like, "Are you just so natural on stage?" Like, and I told him, I was like, "When I sold books, that's exactly the lesson I learned." I just had this conversation 2 hours ago with him, or 3 hours ago with him, and I was like, "Yeah, it's because you're not. It's a performance, but." Because you have to be on, so there is a part of it that is a performance. You
Absolutely.
have a script, so there is like, but the skill is, and maybe it's an acting skill, but it's like you become, or it becomes you, and you don't become it. Maybe is right. So you're saying the same words that Susie's saying, but because you've internalized them, and so now you don't think about the words, but you're just thinking about the person, and caring about them. But you just know that that's the. Of all the top sales people, that has almost been the most common thread, is something along the lines of, I just figured it out how to be myself in the book field, and that's how I sold a lot of books.
Dude,
because people liked me.
My 6th week, summer number 1, I was sitting on the floor of this lady's house, and it was her and her daughter on the couch, and God bless the candidness of a 12-year-old. She looked at her mom halfway through my sales talk, and she goes, "He kind of sounds like a robot." Like, out loud in front of me. And I absolutely did. That's why I sucked. I was not being myself. And then I wrote "be yourself" on the bottom of my visor. And like, that was my whole goal. Summer number 1 is learn how to be me.
And it worked.
It worked.
Imagine.
Crazy.
Imagine that. Wow. Because you're a likable person, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And if people don't like you, it's not because of you.
It's not because of me.
It's kind of like the whole phone thing. You're it's you're for your convenience. You're not for their convenience.
Absolutely.
And the people that find you convenient are going to buy your stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Write that down. I'm keeping an eye on the time here, because I know we got a hard stop here. So let me shift over. Look, here's what's going to happen. Yeah. We didn't even talk about any of your summers besides like.
That's fine. Whatever.
That's okay.
This will either be the most listened to or the least listened to episode.
No. Here's what this means. Here's what this means. It means that you have plenty of things to talk about if you come back. If you choose to come back. So if you're having fun, we can definitely. Plus, we got to get Peter in on this.
Oh yeah.
At some point too, so we can get more banter riff on that. All right. Yeah. But I do want to go into some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
And I almost want to ask you this one last question, because one thing that you and your brother are different than me and my brother, is you guys are in business together.
Yeah.
Have you, before rapid fire, can I ask you about, like, how have you found that? Like, how do you make it work? I know you said he's the pioneer and you're the perfectionist, but there's got to be, does it ever, like, the family ever get in the way, or like, how does that, how do you guys, it's hard. Like,
there's definitely friction at times. We're both very good at compartmentalizing though. So I've seen it more as an asset than a detriment, because when we live 2 miles down the road from each other. So we always see each other, and our families hang out, and like, it's nice because we can process work stuff when we're hanging out. We own a property east of the valley. Like, we have some acreage out there and a couple cabins, and like, we'll go out there and just with our families, but we can chop down a tree together and process what happened the week before. So it's like, there's a really cool benefit with that.
Yeah.
But there's other times where I'm like, I just want to punch him in the face right now, but then we still have dinner together because whatever, for the benefit, like, so there,
kids.
Yeah, there have for the kids. It's like, there have been times where I'm like, dude, I'm so, and I know that he's frustrated with me, but we're also, we don't let that stuff fester. That's one of the things that our relationship has done really well is we'll call it out. Like we'll see each other at work and something awkward went down. Like we can't live in that awkwardness. We'll just be like, all right, let's stop everything until we hash this out. We got to hash it out. And if it takes 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and we're going to hash it out. And between Landmark and Tony Robbins and all of the different trainings we've done and communication styles that we've learned, we've always been able to get to a place of like, oh, okay, I get it. I get why you did what you did. You get why I did what I did. Like, I totally get it. I shouldn't have done that. I should, like, by the end, we're flat about it. And that's been a superpower that he and I have together.
That's sweet. What I would like to see at some point is if you guys really get into it, you guys throw some gloves on, maybe some headgear, find like a ring somewhere and just hash it out.
Just throw at
Instagram Live. Let's just
dude,
do it. We'll
when
go
we were
live on our end.
When we were in college, we did a play. It was like a black box theater play. We went to the same college, and he at one point thought he wanted to do theater too. So we were in this thing, and it was a very obscure play, like one of the weirdest plays I've ever been in. And halfway through, the director, like, I can't even tell you what led into this, but all of a sudden the whole stage went black and you just heard ding, ding, ding. And when the lights came back up, Peter and I were both in like the Mexican wrestling masks and just like tiny little shorts. And we legit did like a wrestling thing in this little black box theater. He picked me up, threw me on the ground, like I don't even remember why, but that was a part of it. So that footage probably exists somewhere in the archives of St. Ben's and St. John's.
St. John's. If we could find it, bro, that would.
Yeah. Oh my God. Right.
Okay, let's go into some rapid fire questions, and we'll do a ponytail here or two.
Deal.
That of your favorite, and then again, it just means you have to come back. So I guess we're gonna have to do another episode.
Oh man. Okay.
Okay. This goes back to specific Southwestern questions, and by rapid fire doesn't mean you have to answer them fast, but more like just whatever comes to mind. So you don't have to get caught up on like specifics if you don't want to, unless it's important. So number one, favorite ballpark. This is easy toss up. Favorite territory that you sold in your 9 summers.
Michigan as a state is the golden promised land because it gets dark at 10 o'clock all summer. Hollywood Road in Three Rivers, I think it was called, in Western Michigan. Hollywood, it was like a 20-mile road, and I probably had 150 customers on it. Like, we crushed that road. It was great. Everybody bought.
That's Swenson Road is what it's called.
Yeah, that's it was, everybody bought on Hollywood Road.
Oh my God, my first summer, this is the only time I ever had this happen, but it was like a little drag of like 8 houses.
Okay.
And 6 of them had kids.
Ooh.
And I got there like at 5:45. I got pre-approached from one of the houses that didn't have kids, and they were kind of a tighter knit community. And then everybody bought. I had like 5 customers like, bah, 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 bah. And I get to the last house, and my approach is literally like,
they all bought.
Hey, I'm Andres.
Yeah.
I'm selling these books, and just so you know, Tim and Jane bought, and then Scott and Ann bought, and I named them all, and they're like with detailed 3-dimensional names saying they all bought. And I go, and so they all said I should come because you're going to buy. So do you want to order what they ordered? And she's like, well, what did they get? They have the same.
I guess I'll just get it all.
And I'll just get that. And I was like, okay.
Oh,
and that was awesome. The whole thing. I left that house and I was like, oh.
That's solid. So now that you said that, I got to put 2 asterisks. So Hollywood Road's favorite street, favorite territory, Grove City, Pennsylvania. When I finished number 1, I crushed Grove City. It was like 7,000 units in 6 weeks. Like, that was fun.
So fun.
And then, but I had a street like the one you're talking about. So I'll try to keep the story brief, but it was my 3rd summer. It was it was a little like neighborhood like this, and there were 10 houses, and there 8 of them had kids. First door I knock on, I'll never forget this lady. Her name was Tracy Saraki. She answered the door. She's like, "Oh, you're selling books." I'm like, "Yeah." And so I walked in, and she's a kindergarten teacher, like big house, nice family. And I'm buying all the books, and she bought everything. She's like $700 worth of books. She's writing me the check, and her husband pulls in, and she looks at me. And she's like, "Oh yeah, sorry, this isn't going to go." I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "He's going to blow it up. He doesn't like salespeople." I'm like, "What do you mean he doesn't like salespeople? What does he do?" "He's a car salesman." I'm like, "Well, then he should love salespeople." And he came in, and he's like, "Oh yeah, this isn't happening." And so she like ripped up the check and walked me outside, and she goes, "Hey, by the way, if you ever drive by and my SUV's here and he's not here, just pull in. I'll write you a check. We'll do the whole thing." And me being like Sammy Southwestern, I'm like, I will never do a suicide call. I will never do. It was the most tempted I ever was to do a suicide call. Every other mom on that street bought from me, and they all bought like everything. So every single mom bought from me. 5 weeks later, I'm on a completely different part of my area. And I got this guy, Dustin Donnelly, with me. And Dusty had told me earlier in the day, I'm like, what did you want to learn today? He's like, I just want to know how you sell everybody. Like, everybody buys from you. I'm like, no, everybody doesn't buy from me. He's like, dude, everybody buys from you. So we're halfway through the day. 5 weeks later, totally different part of town. Those were big houses. Now I'm in like single houses, brick houses, side by side, little street off in the inner city. I'm like, knock on the door. I'm standing there and I look in the driveway next to me and I'm like, I think I recognize that big black SUV. And out of the door is Tracy Saraki. And she looked at me and I looked at her and I was like, Tracy? She goes, Jake? She said, do you still have the books? I was like, do you have a checkbook? She goes, yes, I do. So she grabbed the checkbook, wrote me a check. I unloaded. I was like, Dusty, go put all of these books in her car, all the kids' books, all these ones, and the TLCs, load her up. That was the whole conversation. And we got back in the car and he looked at me and I looked at him. I'm like, oh yeah, everybody buys, bro. He was like, what just happened? Like, well, it's just
his mind must have been
good things happen to people who work hard and have a great attitude, Dusty. That's all it takes, man. Oh, that was
the harder
funny.
you work, the luckier you get.
Yeah,
oh, that's good.
There you go. Favorite territory, favorite street, favorite neighborhood.
There you go. Now, what was your favorite kind of turf? So like big break, country,
BFE country, man. I liked
yes.
I like 40 houses, 40 calls, 35 demos, 20 sit downs, 12 sales. Like that was my bread and butter, man.
The best. And almost
So
like not quite low income, but like middle to kind of high, like the kind of place where a double wide, you're like, oh, they got money.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That,
you're like,
that
all
place.
Right, that's 40 units right there.
A double wide with a trampoline in the back is
and an above ground pool.
Yeah, let's go.
Couple of quads out front. Oh,
Get me in there.
But you'd also sell to the occasional Amish family, and you're like, that was cool.
Yeah,
I appreciated you, brother Yoder. And then and then you get to ride. I rode a 700-pound pig. This lady was like, you want to ride my pig? I'm like, oh yeah. So I got to ride this huge, like 8.5-foot pig. It was crazy.
You gotta love those. I mean, it's just like that doesn't happen in suburbia.
No, not at all.
You're in the country. People are like, have you ever shot a gun? No.
You want to?
Here's the thing. I had.
Dude,
and he goes, do you want
to? So when I was in Georgia, I actually did have a great like country suburbia story. When I was in Georgia, I was sitting down with this family. I was delivering their books and, nice house, middle of a neighborhood. And he goes, any regrets this summer? Like you enjoyed yourself? You had fun? I'm like, yeah, but I never got to get any moonshine. He goes, you want some?
Say
like,
less.
Oh yeah. And he went downstairs and he's got like the mason jar, the whole thing. He's like, there you go. And that story ends with me having moonshine with my HQ after deliveries at a mud bog, sitting on the back of a flatbed truck with a guy named Goat with his shirt off and his nipple rings, just drinking Coors Light and watching monster trucks. Gotta love Georgia.
Okay,
that was wild.
I need you to tell me that story at some point, whether it's later after this or just like
it was a customer. It was a customer. She's like, you got to come out to my mud bog. I'm like, I'll go to a mud bog. What's a mud bog? It was red.
You had me a nipple piercing,
dude. Goat was funny. He was a good guy.
He was the goat. Okay, favorite advanced sales.
That one's really hard. I mean, I had Dave Brown's on repeat for years.
Dave Rosen's or Dave Brown's?
Dave Brown's.
Yeah, with the record breaking thing.
Yeah, I had 20/20 vision. I was sitting there. I would like tell random people in my class this is what it was. It was like I'd memorized all these different packages. So that was one. My favorite live advanced sales ever was Brian Ross. He just did a thing and he said, I also really liked KJ's. I think it was KJ's when he talks about numbers and whatever. But Brian Ross
cards.
Yeah. Brian Ross said, if you want to sell 5,000 units, when you see 3 red flags, you ask a closing question, you get out. You want to sell 7,000 units, you got to look for 2 red flags, ask a closing question and get out. You want to sell 10,000 units, you get 1 red flag, ask a qualifying question and get out. And I lived by that. I heard it after my second summer. And that's when I started hitting a lot after that. Cause I just realized it's an abundance mentality. It's 20 minutes or less, like put it on your watch. And if you're getting non-buying signs, call it out, ask a closing question and get to the next house. And it was, it may have been something he wrote on a napkin 5 minutes before he walked up there, but man, I embodied that for 7 years afterwards.
Wild how that changes your
Yeah.
life, kind of.
Oh yeah.
Favorite HQ?
Definitely my third summer in Michigan. I lived with Bruce Leach in Niles, Michigan. Dude, Bruce was funny, man. He went through a whole, like, over the course of the summer, he found Jesus halfway through the summer. But at the beginning of the summer, he was like a 60-year-old party animal. I mean, some of the stuff he told me, man, like, he had a picture of his girlfriend, and it basically was like the cover of American, what is that one with Kevin Spacey with the girl covered in rose petals? Like,
I'm not sure.
Anyways, it was like his girlfriend covered in rose petals just on his mantle. He's like, that's my girlfriend. Like, okay, Bruce. When he asked, we found him by knocking on his house, and he said, he's like, yeah, I got one bedroom. And so we looked at the bedroom. It's like a 12 by 12 foot bedroom for 4 guys. I was like, Bruce, that's not going to work. Like, you seem like a nice guy, but that's not going to work. He goes, well, I mean, I also have my entire basement. Oh,
you start with that.
Maybe that would work. It's 3 bedrooms, a couch, the whole thing. So, but we paid our rent. We just bought him a 30 rack of Natty Ice. That was our rent. And he ended up hosting for like 5 or 6 summers afterwards. Travis Mickelson lived with him. Like, this dude was a G. We overheard a phone call one day. This one's a little PG-13, but he's on the phone call and he's like, what? No. Now? No. All right. I'll see you later. Hey, Bruce, what was that? Neighbor lady wants to have a threesome. You know, it's like, she's got to call me earlier. I got to get the Viagra to kick in. We're just like,
what?
We're just like making our sandwiches for the next day. Bruce was G.
So good.
And then
that sounds like Portland.
But then halfway through the summer, every morning, we're running out of the house at 6 a.m. He's sitting in the living room reading his Bible, saying, have a blessed day. Like, totally 180 degrees halfway through the summer. And I don't know what happened, but I know that he was still that way years later. So I'm happy for him. And that was, Bruce was awesome.
Bruce Almighty.
Oh yeah.
Jesus.
Bruce. Good guy.
Oh, that's good, bro. Okay. Favorite breakfast spot?
Nancy and Susie's, third summer. Same deal. Pancakes with peanut butter and jelly in between them.
Nancy and Susie's
Cafe in Michigan. Niles, I think. Niles. I don't know if it's still there. Their picture was on our wall for like 2 years.
Every once in a while, I'll try to go find it and see if it's there. Nancy and Susie's Cafe is closed.
Wow.
Heartbreak. Okay, and then the last one I'll ask you is, what was your? And this doesn't necessarily mean units.
Okay.
It doesn't necessarily mean units, but sometimes it can mean it's the same thing. But your favorite and or best sales day that you ever had?
448.
Okay, so was it?
I knew that number.
You are a unit ahead.
I'm a unit head. That was a fun day.
448. Wow. That's pretty solid.
It was. So I actually listened to an advanced sales CD. I don't remember if it was Amaris or Kaya or somebody, but they were telling a story of how they really wanted to hit Mort and they were depressed because they didn't think they were going to hit it. And they talked to their host family and they lived with a book girl. And she was like, oh man, like my best day was 400 units. And I don't know if you know this one, but whoever the advanced sales CD, she's like, well, I kept thinking if she could do it, I could do it. So I went out and I sold like 405 units that day and I hit Mort. And I went home and I told my host mom, I hit Mort. I hit 405 today. And she went, today? That was my best week. And so she had like misinterpreted it, right? And I had listened to that, but I was at my friend Pat Smith had hit Mort before I did my third summer, and I was at like 800 some units, and I really wanted to beat him. And I had just listened to that. I'm like, why not? I'll just show everybody everything. Like, let's just see what happens. It was like 11 customers, 448. It was a wild day. Like everybody bought everything.
Yeah, dude, that's the secret. I honestly, for people who are like, what's the secret? Just show everything. I had Peter Petkoff here. I don't know if you've heard the name, but or if you've stayed up to date with Southwestern people. He's the guy that now has a record. He beat Dustin's record. He sold 30,000 units in one summer. He did it in like 14 weeks or something. But I was like, and he's from Europe, Bulgarian. Yeah. He came here and he was staying in my house for like a couple of weeks while he was looking for HQs. Yeah. And one day I was like, so what do you like? Honestly, you can't, I mean, that's a jump.
You just hold a gun to their head, like, you will buy from me, right?
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, wait. I said, God, what is it? And he goes, I just don't sell anything below the whole bag to everybody, unless it's like absolutely that doesn't make sense. Like if you have a senior in high school, they don't need the MUFUs, right? But like generally speaking, like most families have kids of all ages, and you never know who needs coloring books. And if that comes part of the package and then they donate it, who cares? But like I just close the bag and that's what I sell. So then it's like if you have 4 or 5 customers and they all bought the bag,
there you go, 500 units a day.
Yep. Yeah. So and I was like,
just a few hundred units a day, no big deal.
Right? It's crazy. Yeah. Anyway, cool. Hell yeah. That concludes. Okay, so here we go. We have about a few minutes. We have a few minutes.
You can run over a little bit if you want. I have a hard stop that's like, it's not that hard.
Makes sense. All right. So here we go. So this is time for ponytails. So this is where we have our guests, just for people listening who maybe it's the first episode, where we ask you earlier on, I was like, hey, just think of like your favorite book story that you take with you all the time and save that for the end. So we've had some, nipple piercings. We've had, found a Jesus, former unicorn, all that. Yeah. Great. But in your mind, when you think back on your Southwestern experience, what is like 1 or 2 memories that you like, man, this story, if I had to tell it again, this is the one.
Oh, that's a great one. A great question. This is the one that gets asked for the most when people have heard a lot of my stories, because it's just so out of this world.
Good.
And it was my first summer, and it was towards the end of my first summer. I was selling in Aiken, South Carolina, and there's a cool like asterisk at the end of the story, but I was selling in Aiken, South Carolina, and I was driving kind of out of town. It was like towards the end of my turf, and off the right side of the road was, you go downhill into like a forest area. And on the left side, it was big brick. I looked over, I'm like, oh, that's some pretty big brick over there. Like legitimate houses that are big and brick. I didn't really have that much my first summer. So I was like, oh, I didn't know that's what it was. So I turn left and I drive into this neighborhood, and I immediately was like, okay, this is weird. Like, I got the heebie-jeebies the moment I drove in, and the neighborhood was called Heatherwood. So if in post you want to like look this up, you can, because I did it on Google Earth like a month ago with Peter, because I was like, this is what I'm always talking about. Like, it's trippy. So I drove in, and all the grass is mowed perfectly. Every house is identical. Not identical, but it's like all the same tone of brick, and they're all huge. 15-foot glass, like huge windows, but every window has brown paper in it. I'm like, why is there brown paper in all these windows? And every front driveway has a half moon bathtub with a statue of Mary inside of it. I'm like, where the hell am I? And then brand new Lexuses and Volvos, like silver cars driving by me. And every one of the women looked like Carol Brady. They had like a little beehive blonde haircut, and they drove out. I'm like, am I on a movie set? Like, where am I right now? I drove in a little bit further. I noticed that behind every house is a single wide trailer. Also kind of weird. I turn the corner, and there's one normal house in the middle with a big yard. And the thing that was unique about this big yard is there was a 40-something-year-old man running around the yard completely butt naked. And I was like, I turned around, I drove out. I'm like, what on earth was that? I don't know what that was, but that was I had the heebie-jeebies in that neighborhood. So I went on an investigation, and I had to. So I go across the street, and I'm selling to families. I'm like, what is going on in Heatherwood? What is going on? So this is corroborated by 4 or 5 different families. This is not just like one lady told me this. Like, I kept asking, I'm like, I'm not going to tell people about this unless it's real. So it's the Gypsies. And I'm like, the Gypsies? They're like legit Irish travelers who have come and moved over here. And the husbands they go out of state, and they paint people's driveways. And I cannot confirm nor deny whether or not they're actually ripping people off, but they're ripping people off. They're painting their driveways. It's all washing off. They come home on weekends. None of their kids go past 6th grade. They have different colored eyeballs. The family lives in the back of they live in the trailer for 3 years while they're chanting and doing rituals to get the spirits out of their house. And they live in the grandma lives in the trailer because all the kids are inbred and have different colored eyeballs, different colored eyes. And I'm like, what? This is no way. There's no way. But this is like multiple families telling me this. I'm like, all right, I got to go sell me a Gypsy. So I go across the street and I start knocking, and I'm like, I have to go sell one. And I went, I had to go knock the trailer, and they didn't live in the house. I'm like, so who lives up there? Like, we don't live in it. We're still working on it. I'm like, okay, that house has clearly been there for a while. And it was a grandma and like a younger mom, and they both looked like Carol Brady. They sounded like Brad Pitt from Snatch with his pikey accent with a little Southern twang in it. And this 12-year-old girl didn't know what college was. It was like kind of sad. I was like, so are you planning on going to college? She's like, college? I was like,
say it, come again.
She's like, college? I'm like, yeah. Like, where do you have older siblings? But all of the boys drop out of school at like 12 or 13 years old to go work with their dads. And that's just like the lifestyle they have. And I did meet a kid with 2 different colored eyes, which was really trippy. And they didn't buy anything from me because she wasn't going to college, right? So I was like, with the ACTs, you could use them as Frisbees? No? Okay. So I went to this other house, and I got in the house. And dude, I got to tell you, most gaudy, over the top, expensive house I'd really ever been in. I've been in a house that has elevators and huge amethyst thing and like heated driveways. And there's some crap out in Western Michigan that, my goodness. But these houses, the carpet is like plush carpet, mahogany, everything, crystal chandeliers, like just reeked of money all the way through it. I sold the lady the My Books for her brand new baby. She had to go borrow money from her neighbor because she didn't have any money. She had to go borrow $50 to pay half down for it, and then try to talk me out of it when I went to deliver it to pay for the rest of it. But man, it was like, I sold one customer in there and I'm like, I'm out. Like, I am I feel weird. Like, that was the weirdest experience. So yeah, the Gypsies of my first summer was probably one of the strangest places I sold in.
You sold you a Gypsy.
I had to sell me a Gypsy. I got one. And yeah.
Bro.
Oh, also all the property. So none of the houses had, it was either a sink or a bathroom, one of the two, because that allowed them to be classified as businesses. All the property lines were the same, and they all had the same last name. So it was listed as one property that was a business, and that's how they paid taxes. And
it was Heatherwood, South Carolina, or what town is it?
The Heatherwood subdivision in South Carolina. Like, if you look up Heatherwood Avenue in South Carolina, Heatherwood Street, it was like, oh, so weird. I missed 30.
Do you know what part of South Carolina it was in?
It was near Aiken or North Augusta, near North Augusta. Actually,
yeah,
could have been.
I found it.
There you go.
I found it.
If you go to Google Maps, Street View, and like drive in.
Oh, dude, I got one better.
Yeah.
I got one better.
You gonna pop it up?
Oh yeah.
I was like, I have to tell people about this.
Neighborhood in North Augusta, home to the Irish Travelers.
Dude, I see. I'm not full of crap. There it is.
Murphy Village neighborhood. Look at it right there. That's some good territory.
Dude, that's some good turf. All these like, yeah, there's one of the brick houses. So those windows were all, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, those windows were all like just brown paper in all of the windows. It was so trippy.
Because nobody's talking, so I'll turn
all these brown, and then there's the trailers. Yeah.
Back there. Bro, what the hell?
Everything's trimmed perfectly. It was like driving into, what's the word I'm looking for? Pleasantville. Like, it was just,
what,
I can't believe there's a YouTube clip of that.
This was your turf?
That was a part of my turf. Yeah.
Wow. How bananas. How odd.
Yeah.
How strange, man. That's a great ponytail right there, dude. That's so. And by the way, and people who are listening who are like, oh, that's so. Those people aren't weird. Listen, when you knock on thousands of doors, and the word weird is defined as abnormal or not of the common or uncommon, that is the definition of very weird.
So real quick, side sub story. This is when you said ponytails. This one popped up. I didn't even write on my thing, but I was selling in Georgia. I think it was Georgia, and I had. I would always sit at church for gravy time. Like, I'd find a church parking lot to go sit in, and I'd pray and I'd read some stuff, and I'd go to the bathroom in the woods and whatever. So I was in a church parking lot in Georgia in the middle of nowhere. And I was standing there peeing, and I looked off into the woods, and I was like, that's a very flesh looking thing on the ground out there. did I just find a body?
No.
Like, it's been 7 years. I probably found a body. Okay. So I went back to my car, and the person who was shadowing me was Jason. I was like, Jason, you got to come here. Like, you got to, like, come here. So we walked over there, and I was like, is that a body? She's like, oh my God, I think it's a body. I'm like, I think it's a body. So I like climbed over the fence, and I don't think it was on church property. So I'm like, just climbed over a fence and start going back there. And the closer I get, the more I'm like, that is a body. Like, that is a legitimate, I see 3.5 feet of flesh. Like, that is a body. It was not a body. It was a, rather intricate and, most likely very expensive, sex toy that had been discarded in the middle of the forest. And
Let's go.
It also happened to be collect random week. And I was like get a bag. No, it was it had some weight. Like, I tried to pick it up with a stick. It had some weight to it. And I was like, Jason, do I have a garbage bag in my car? Like, what do we have in my car? We got to bring this to the Sunday meeting.
You have to. This is the ultimate above bigger and better.
Dude, we ended up just leaving it. I'm like, I can't touch it. Like, I can't.
You shouldn't touch
I'm a germaphobe. I'm like, I'm like, I got to stand 10 feet back because you don't know. Like, but oh my gosh, that was the weirdest. And I've seen, like, South Carolina, my first summer, on the 3rd of July, I walked by someone's garage that was fully lit up, and he had his full, like, Klan outfit hanging up in the garage, perfectly ironed.
Classy.
I was like,
classy.
Where am I? Right. So I've seen some weird stuff, but that in the middle of the forest is probably the weirdest thing I'd ever seen. Yeah.
I won't show it because it'll take time to find it, but I've shown it in other episodes, but in Pennsylvania, I was up in Honesdale, so I was in the northeastern section. I'm driving in the middle of the woods, just woods, country roads, right? And then all of a sudden, there's like bicycles of different technological advancements. So some were like new with like shifting speeds, and some were like from like the 1940s.
Okay.
And they were stapled and or hung up to trees, multiple trees throughout the road, like up and down. And I was like,
creepy.
What the hell? So that's the weirdest thing I found in the middle of the woods while I was selling. It's just like, what weird is stuff this? Out there, man. This is crazy. Yeah. And that's all in this country. It's so people are weird, man. And we've seen it intimately. Oh yeah. It's so wonderful.
And people are good, man. Some of the coolest, nicest, most incredible human beings on this planet you meet when you're out knocking on doors. It's pretty cool.
I've said it before. I've met the dads that I didn't want to be like, and the dads that I definitely want to be like in the future. Mm-hmm. And in the same way, the husbands, and like, all, like you just meet people that you're like, if the world was more like you, even just a little bit, we'd all be in a better place. Yeah. Amen. That's a good note to pause. Well, I want to say pause and not end, because all right.
I'm good with that.
You have to come back again, bro. You have to come back again. We had a whole page of like stories.
Yeah.
That we didn't even get to talk.
We hit the only one on there that Heatherwood wasn't on there. And I wrote the sex doll on there after I sent it to you. So we haven't hit anything on that whole page.
Anything on that whole, it's a whole list. Next time you'll just start from beginning to end. It's just
funny stories. Yeah.
All right, man. Hey, we're going to close this one up, guys. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Andres Gamboa. If you guys want to get a hold of Jake, so there's a couple things. We have a lot of book people that are listening, or past book people who might be looking for a place to work. So if you guys are like, hey, that culture, those core values, I align with all of those, you guys make sure you go and check out, either click on the link below. We'll have like a direct website or a way to contact Jake if you need to. If you can't find it, just message us, and then we'll get you in touch with Jake, so you guys can get a little bit more information on that career opportunity. Or if you just want to catch up with him, make sure to go there. Make sure you guys follow us. Reminder, Bizzler is now going to be in the Dominican Republic, so if you guys want to come out to our alumni Sizzler trip, it's going to be in the DR in late October. Jake, you're automatically invited to that. Bring Peter and your wife and his wife. We need as many people. Lee McCroskey is now officially going, so we'll see you guys there for that. We'll catch you on the next episode, guys. Thanks so much. Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks for being on, Jake.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Bye.